Hi, I'm Evangeline here at eTrailer. Today we have the Inno Tire Hold HD 2-bike platform rack. We're taking a look at how it fits here on our 2023 GMC Terrain. This is going to be a great bike rack if you have heavy electric bikes and you want something that's strong, sturdy, but also is really easy to load and unload. With an 80-pound weight capacity per bike, this is going to be a great option for if you have those heavier electric bikes, especially the ones with step-through frames, because you have a front and rear wheel mount. You also have some other features here, like if you want to tilt the rack away to get access into your hatch area. So that can be done by just pulling this lever here, tilting the rack down, and then raising the door up. Now, the angle of the rack has always been on the slightly lower side. So here we're gonna have to manually lift our door and we can't go all the way up. So what I recommend doing is for your Terrain, up front, you're gonna have different options there. You can have the power lift go to max, 3/4, or turn it off. I'd recommend doing either 3/4 or turning it off. That way if you do open up the door, you don't have to stand right here to make sure it doesn't hit your handlebars. But still, with the angle you do have, it does give you a little bit of space to grab whatever you need from your hatch. Then when you're done, you just lift the bike rack up and you are now ready to go. So what types of bikes can this carry? We did talk about that 80-pound weight capacity, but let's also talk about exactly how we keep our bikes in place. This has a front and a rear wheel mount, making this a dual wheel mount bike rack. Check out our video here on our site where we compare the different dual wheel mounts to give you more information on how that whole genre works. When you want to take the bike off, the way this one works is you just press on the lever and this gives you that initial push out on the rack, and then you can continue pushing and that will disengage that front or rear wheel mount completely. So that way it's just a single-handed operation. One hand on the center of the bike, press that lever, push that mechanism out, and now you can grab your bike and go. The Inno Tire Hold HD also has the option of, if you pull another lever and pull another tab, you can then bring the entire mount all the way down to the ground if you would rather kind of ramp your bike down. Now, that option does take a little bit more time to do. Check out my full review video here on our site if you're curious about how that process works. But those different options are there for if you do have different bikes of different shapes and weights and sizes, you can figure out what's the best way for you to load and unload. These fold down to be more compact and neat. So let's now talk about how the tire hold sits on your Terrain. Now you always need a bike rack that has a good amount of rise just because the hitch on the Terrain sits pretty low to the ground. So if you measure for like the space or where it will sit on the car, we'll first start with the bumper to the end of the rack. That's going to be 31 inches, pretty normal for a 2-bike platform rack. Still a number worth knowing if you have a small garage and you need to park into a tight spot. But the important number for me is the ground clearance. So end of the rack to the ground sits at around 17.5 inches there. We do have a little stopper down here, and that's going to be 15 inches off the ground. But then we're going to look at where you lift your bikes up onto the rack, and that's going to be 20 inches off the ground. That's important when you're maxing this out to your 80-pound bike capacity, because you want to see if you're able to lift that up. Fortunately, since this is a bit lower, it's not as much height that you're going to have to maneuver compared to if you have this on another vehicle. Another thing too is the ground clearance. It gives you a lot of forgiveness for when you go up those steep inclines like those driveways or hills. When you hit that steep incline, front goes up, the back goes down, but you are less likely to be bottoming out because of the rise this rack gives. Now for the handle, remember when we pull that in order to tilt the rack away, there's two things you're going to notice here. One is that you will see this red indicator that will show you that that lever or handle is engaged. The second is that not only can you tilt away, you can also lift up to bring the rack into one of two of your portable positions. So you first have this almost 45-degree angle, which is going to be great If you want almost constant access to your hatch, let's say you need to put away groceries, grab things out of your cargo area, even if your bike is in its compact position, it's still very accessible. The next is going to be your fully portable position or fully compact, and that's if you're driving around town and you don't want to take up too much space. While it looks like it comes close to the vehicle, there's plenty of space there, about 2 inches, which is a bit more compared to some other racks. And this is going to be about how much movement you get, nothing where I am concerned. And the next one is going to be the length this now adds from your bumper end of the rack. It's now 12 inches of space it takes up. So let's say you do have that small garage and the bike rack doesn't exactly fit when it's in the down position, but you just need a nice safe space to load it up onto your vehicle. And this is how you're going to attach it. And this is what your rack will look like behind your car. With it folded up like this, we have pretty good visibility. Now that handle does kind of cover the license plate, but it's mostly visible. For me, what's important is the backup camera. Sits right there above the handle, giving you really good visibility of if there's any cars or people behind you. Obviously, your taillights and your window will be able to be seen. So in this position, especially with the ability to fold this down to the 45-degree angle, I'm really happy about how we still get to keep most of the features of our vehicle with the bike rack loaded up. So final thoughts for this rack is I really like the Inno brand. I always think they make really functional products that are helpful to be used. There is another version of this bike rack by Inno, which is going to be the Inno Quick Base with the bike rack attachments. The Quick Base is their modular system. You can switch out the bike rack for a box and just switch things back and forth. That's worth considering if you're going to be doing different adventures and you want different accessories. If you're just looking at a 2-bike rack for your electric bikes though, this is going to give you that great 80-pound weight capacity. And if you need a ramp added on, that is something available for this rack as well. I just really wish that it tilted down far enough where I was able to get access into my hatch without having to take the bike off or have to compromise to just that 34 amount of opening. So that's going to be the downside to this rack. If you are looking for another rack that might give you more clearance, you may want to check out the Kuat Piston Pro. That has a similar look to this. You got that matte black design, you've got those trays and a dual wheel mount rack, but that one is going to be a more premium rack because it's operated with a piston instead of a lever. Plus, it does have a slightly lower weight capacity at 67 pounds versus the Inno Tire Hold at 80 pounds. So it really depends on what type of bikes you're carrying around, as well as what you're just looking for in a bike rack. But for a bike rack that has that high weight capacity for those heavy electric bikes, plus is easy to use when loading and unloading them, and fits really well in the compact position here on our Terrain, this right here was a look at the Inno Tire Hold HD 2 electric bike rack on our 2023 GMC Terrain.